Hello, welcome to my garden. Come on down. My name's Jess, and today I have a final iteration of the Frog Prince series. I've gone really deep and I have some revelations to share with you. I'm quite satisfied with this being the final episode of the journey because the symbols that I've found tie the story together very nicely. So hold on to your hat and come on a journey. Let's go. So yesterday I was wandering around town and I brushed past this homeless fella. And we looked into each other's eyes and something happened inside my body. He looked homeless. He didn't feel like a homeless man. He felt interdimensional, and I already had this in the back of my mind since I've heard it said before by channelers and other spiritual people that time travelers may often take the form of homeless people. We'll get further into that in a moment. So that happened. He had these sparkling blue eyes that were like a vortex, and it was just a very bizarre, pertinent moment that occurred. And then I went home and a man knocked on my door and asked me if I would like him to sharpen my knives, which I've never had that happen before. I don't know if this is a common thing where I'm living, but it was like a door-to-door salesman whose specialty is knife sharpening. And I said, no, thank you. These are not my knives. I don't need that, but bon chance. Then I was on the phone later that day to a friend who started talking about how he feels like the baseline fear in all of humanity is being homeless, which I had not brought up this encounter with the homeless man. And we were in a conversation about safety, security, the root chakra. And so he was talking about how in school he feels like the major conditioning is towards a type of obedience where your core fear is becoming homeless, which is, it's funny because it's kind of like irrelevant, because often, you know, if you're from like the middle class, which is what I'm from, you don't like you have homeless people in your life. And so it's just a funny thing that is constantly eating at you at all times. I don't know if it's for everyone, but I certainly resonated with him in that idea that I have a deep fear of, and you could say it's irrational. It must not be, because it took me so long to get the word just then, but a fear that that's going to happen. And then so what underlies that fear we continue to discuss? Well, it's the fear of death. But then I asked myself, what's under the fear of death? Because I think for me, I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid that this goes forever. I'm afraid that once I touch death, I will realize that it's not there, and I'm going to keep going and going and going and going, and you never escape. And then my friend said, well, the core concern there is that things are never going to change. That's the lie that the fear tells you. You're going to be stuck in this place for infinity. So that's the baseline of where my head was at. And I was guided to watch a film called Ella Enchanted. So the protagonist of the movie is a princess called Ella, who upon her birth is cursed by a fairy to follow people's orders. She has a problem with obedience, where if somebody tells her what to do, she can't help but move her body and go and do that thing, which wreaks havoc on her life. And so she sets out to undo the curse by finding the fairy. In the process, she meets this prince who is also dressed in blue. You notice that anybody on the team of Ella seems to be represented by blue, and their opponents, the enemy, who portray a sense of evil, are always represented by red. As you can see in this image, which is blurry, but it says on the blue sash, valor, not vainglorious, and on the red sash it says hubris, not humility. The blue side represents a type of innocence or naivety or pure good in the binary system. And then the red is prideful and full. So you could also see this as purely feminine essence or purely masculine essence. There's a empty, passive sense, and then there's this forceful evil. And you also notice that the prince is always holding this stake, which looks like a caduceus, and at the very top, what might be a golden ball, which also has this E symbol on it, which I won't get into maybe right now, but we might later. So the prince and the princess fall in love, of course. There's at the strike of midnight, he's going to propose to her and ask her to become his wife. But in the moments beforehand, she has been ordered by one of the evildoers to stab him in the back with a knife. While she's just about to stab him in the back, she has the thought of her mother telling her, "Your heart is stronger than any curse that anyone could put upon you." Oh. And then she drops the knife and the curse is lifted. But what we realize in the process of lifting the curse is that she and her other friends have had to learn to perform acts of violence from a space of heart-centered intention. So they are no longer naive, they're no longer innocent, and they've brought the two sides of the binary into a state of perfection. Now let's have a look at some cards I pulled. So if you look closely in this series of cards, every card has a depiction of a triangle in it. The first four cards, the triangle is upright, and the final two, it's upside down. This makes me think about my friend and oftentimes guru, Nathan King, founder of Euphoriam Program. He talks about a triangle system where if the all that is, or the original essence of I am enough, I am love, the pure feminine, you could call it a feminine quality that occurs in the air of all that is before we come down on earth into our physical form of the 3D. You might call it the 5D and above, and then the triangle below, time, right, like a sand timer, creates the pyramid of the 3D construct, who I am. And he also likes to think of it as the 3 points of the triangle are I am not love, I am not enough, or I don't have enough, or I have a rejection. And then the final point, I may be goofing this a little bit, but the final point is about whatever story I created about myself to resolve the fact that I'm not enough and that I'm not love. And then if you can tackle the 3 points of the triangle by inverting them with your beliefs and understanding of self, then you become the opposite and you become love. So you smash them out and this triangle drops down and you have the Merkaba. So how does this relate to the Frog Prince, and what is the upside down triangle? Okay, so the homeless time traveler. Why would a homeless person be a good candidate for time travel? Well, my friend and I yesterday postulated that it's because if you reach the absolute baseline of your root insecurity of the triangle, right, which is fear of homelessness, according to us in this conversation, then you have the capability of transcending everything and turning it into a chalice of security. And if time, a sand timer, is a chalice and a non-chalice, then you can fold time and come into the center of infinity, because you no longer fear infinity. You know how I said that the fear of death is actually the fear of infinity, of going forever, of being stuck in this place forever? The homeless time traveler does not fear that anymore and realizes that it was a lie. And so he can stay in the center. You get the picture, right? Bing, bang, bing, bang. So in The Frog Prince, the princess drops her golden ball down a well, and that well could represent infinity. It's a chalice. It's full of water or nourishment or the pure feminine essence that is in the sky prior to the creation of the 3D construct. You could also think about this in reference to the Adam and Eve story, where Eve is the first one to eat from the apple, which is from the tree of good knowledge of good and evil. And so when she eats that apple, she has the binary now inside of her. So she's no longer pure feminine. She's a mixture of feminine and masculine and convoluted infinity, as is Adam, and it just goes on and on and on. The princess is innocent. She's like Ella Enchanted. She is naive. She doesn't know that she has this wholeness inside her, and she doesn't see this moment of losing her ball, her golden ball, which could also represent the sun or that same creative energy essence that makes her whole and that makes her a sovereign being. Her dropping that into the well, she sees that as an opportunity to panic, to split, and to divide into the binary of good and bad. Oh no, I'm in trouble. I need to find the solution. I'll do anything. I'm not whole. This frog who's guarding the well, he also represents the fear of infinity or the fear of no change. He's going to be stuck like this forever unless he can get his true love's kiss, because they're both thinking in this binary way, this solution-based way. They come to this naive agreement where they're going to subtly try to manipulate each other so that they can both get back to what they want, which is wholeness. So when they make that agreement, they're both representing that same naivety or innocence that we see in Ella Enchanted. And then the thing that breaks the spell or brings them back to wholeness is when the princess throws the frog against the wall in the original Grimm Brothers tale. This turns the frog back into a prince, and they both get everything they've ever wanted, which makes a really nice contrast to the Ella Enchanted story. And if you look at these two final cards, you could see that this might be the feminine construct burning herself away and becoming the chalice, because they've both altered their understanding of their identity of wholeness. And then this root energy of safety and security uprising, where look, it's a stoplight and the train, it's that idea that, oh, I'm going to miss the train. But instead, no, you're not. You have all the time in the world and the train will not pass you by. It's going to wait for you. That's the sense of security that you find when you integrate the shadow or your concept of evil, because there is no such thing really. There's our ability to act from a place of darkness, but it can still be from a sense of wholeness from your heart. Something that I haven't yet discussed is that at the end of the Frog Prince original story, there's this bizarre tagline at the end about a character called Iron Heinrich, He doesn't get introduced at the start of the story, and in some versions of the story, it's actually called the Frog Prince or Iron Heinrich. So Heinrich is the servant of the king. He's the faithful servant of the king. And he has put 3 iron bands around his heart because his heart is so broken and sad that his king has turned into a frog and can't reverse the spell. So Iron Heinrich is living through his master, or the idea of his God within the binary. And then when the spell is lifted, the 3 bands of his heart break back open and his heart is full again. So not only does the act of violence by the princess undo the spell, but it also undoes the subservient nature of Iron Heinrich in a way. At the very end of the story, Iron Heinrich and the now prince, who's not a frog anymore, are riding in a carriage drawn by 8 horses, 8 of course representing the infinity. And the prince says to Heinrich, "What's that noise? Is it the carriage breaking?" And Heinrich says, "No, in fact, it is the 3 bands of my heart." And to me, the carriage would represent the home, right? Or the thing that carries you, the container. So in the king's perception of their container breaking apart, it was actually the subservience of Iron Heinrich and his closed heart that is undoing, and the whole thing comes back into a sense of order and wholeness and completion. So that's what I got. That is what I've got. Guys, if you want to sit with me in meditation tomorrow night and Saturday morning, or one or the other, join me. The form is below. We're going to integrate this whole topic that I'm speaking of into a genuine physical experience in the body. So if it resonates with you, come and join me. I'm going to lead the way. We're going to go on a hectic quantum journey of integration. Form below. Come and join me. Bye.